Let's start in a nice seated position. Okay, so I wanted to call this a yin and stretch class because technically stretching isn't yin, but I thought that stretching might be particularly helpful and a good complement to the yin practice. So we're going to be doing a little bit of muscle stretching in with the deeper joint and bone stretching that makes up yin. So starting in a comfortable seated position, let's just get ourselves grounded with the breath. You can turn the palms face down or up. Close the eyes if it's comfortable, keep them open if they need to be open. As you continue sitting tall, let the chest lift up and soften the shoulders back behind you. Just take a moment to observe the breath. Right, no need to really alter the breath, just observing the qualities of the inhales, of the exhales. Let yourself have this time for you. Letting yourself use this time to kind of check in and do a little something for you. Keeping the breath moving in and out through the nose as best you can. Start to deepen the breath each time you inhale, each time you exhale. So Ujjayi breath here is optional, right? If you want to do the more heating breath, you're welcome to do so, but certainly not required in a yin practice. Always good to just keep an eye on the breath though. This is still a mindful practice, and because we will be getting deep with some of the stretching, you want to make sure that the breath moves wherever we go. Let's take 3 or so more deep breaths right here. Good. Bringing palms together at the heart. If you want to join me to chant a brief Om, you're welcome to do so. Just starting with a deep breath in and taking a deep breath out. Inhale. Start to open up the eyes if they're not already open. Lifting the arms overhead, start to interlace all 10 fingers. Let the hands settle at the back of your head. Maybe even somewhere close to the base of your skull. And let the elbows soften out to the side so the shoulders just kind of drop away from the ears. And just very gently, in a very subtle way, just let your chin point up a little bit. And that might even be no more than 1/4 of an inch that you're actually moving. That's okay. It should be enough for you to feel a little stretch deep in the shoulders. All right, so the shoulders kind of release out. We get some of the stretch here just from working with gravity. Let's take another deep breath or so. And And taking one more deep breath in, keep the chest lifted. With your exhale, very, very light pressure on the back of the head, almost no pressure. Bring the elbows in as you tuck the chin and round just a little bit. On the inhale, again, sit tall, chest up, elbows reaching out. Exhaling, gently curl it in. 3 more like that. Inhale. Exhale. And of course, you're welcome to close the eyes here too if you want. Completely up to you. Let's do one more deep breath. Start to come back up, sitting tall. Let the arms relax down by your side. Let's come off of our seat. Let's come on to hands and knees. From your hands and knees, starting first with a little wrist stretch, turn the fingertips in toward the knees. And if this is too deep of a stretch, you can turn the fingertips any direction you choose as long as you're getting something out of the stretch here. All right, so please modify anything that you need and unmute yourself. Let me know if something's happening, or you can always put something in chat. So you can either hold it right here for the stretch. If you want to go for a little cat-cow while you're here too, or maybe even a little side-to-side stretch, feel free. All right, this is, generally not the way that we move our hands all that much, so sometimes we need to stretch our wrists this way, because we spend so much time on keyboards and phones. And let's take another deep breath or so. And we'll meet somewhere in the middle, releasing out the hands. Just turn the fingertips around. You can keep the toes tucked to begin with. Walk your hands back, have a seat on your heels, bring your hands to your thighs. Toe stretch, another way we don't really move our feet. Really good way to soften the fascia, also helps to soften the chain all the way up from our heel through our hamstrings. So feel free if you need to come out, that's okay, but we're going to take another 3 to 5 deep breaths. And start to let your hands reach again for the mat. Come onto your hands and knees. And briefly take a downward facing dog. This is more just as a transition. Tuck the toes, lift the hips up and back. And if you like, while we're here, you can walk out the feet. Foot to the right thumb. Lower the back knee down on the mat. Bring both hands to your right thigh, lifting the chest and soften the shoulders. If it feels good to do so, you can let the hips sink into the stretch. All right, if not, don't do it. Keep the tailbone lengthening down, chest up. While we're here, let's lift the arms overhead, interlace all 10 fingers, flip the palms up toward the sky. And again, giving the shoulders a nice little stretch here. Taking another deep breath or so. Good. Let's take a gentle twist. Bring your left hand to the outside of the right leg. Let the right arm drape around the lower back. So the hips face forward, the torso opens toward the right. let's take another deep breath or so. Good. Let's come back to center. Lower your hands to the mat and bring both hands inside the right foot. Coming into a little lizard pose. If you want to walk the right foot over another inch or so, feel free to do that. And you can keep the hands down if you want to grab a block and put your elbows on blocks. Feel free to do that. All right, so we're releasing out the lower back when we give the hip flexor a stretch. Anytime we do that, we're, hopefully releasing the lower back in addition to opening up the hips. Let's give ourselves another deep breath or so. And from our lizard pose, return your hands to the mat. You can, if you need to grab a strap or a belt or something to grab your foot, feel free to grab a belt. Start to bend up at the left knee, reach the right hand back and hold on to the back foot. So yeah, using the strap if that's going to help you, or even a blanket or a towel if you want to wrap it around the back foot. Keep the hips sinking in and start to slightly tuck the tailbone a little bit. So on a scale of 1 to 10, we want to be working somewhere, I guess, around a 6, because it's a little bit more than just a very gentle stretch, but it's a little bit more than a yin stretch, less than a vinyasa stretch. Let's take another deep breath or so. And start to let go of your back foot, both hands around front. Ardha Hanuman half split, which is basically an extension of the low crescent lunge. Start to straighten the front leg, bring your hands to opposite sides of the right leg. I'm actually going to do this facing the other way because we're going to take another little twist here too. If you want to grab blocks under the hands, feel free. Right, if you don't need the blocks, that's okay too. And we'll be here for another 3 to 5 deep breaths. All right, the right toes curl back a little bit. The hips should be just about squared off to the front of the mat. Just make sure the breath is moving. Good. We'll be back here to do the deeper variation, but I just want to hit most of the spots first before going full throttle into that. I think we're going to need a little bit more. Take your back foot and untuck the toes. Slide your left foot a little bit toward the left side as you bring both hands to the outside of your right leg, and just walk the hands back until you start to feel a stretch in your outer right hip. So that might be a different spot for each of us. It might be closer up to the foot. It might be closer back toward the actual hip. But just go until you feel that stretch. Let's take another 3 to 5 deep breaths. And of course, coming out, if you need to come out of anything early, that's fine. Start to walk your hands back around to center. Let's rebend the front knee for low lunge. Step back to down dog, bring your right foot back. Let's come forward to plank, but lower all the way down onto the belly. So lower all the way down, untuck the toes, slide the arms back alongside the body. Reach the arms back behind you, interlace all 10 fingers. So draw the shoulders back, your chin is center, maybe even your forehead is touching toward the mat. The tops of the feet are on the mat. The knees start to lift up a little bit off the mat. With your next big inhale, lift everything off the mat, coming into Shalabhasana. All right, so this is less of a yin stretch, more of a muscle stretch. Just draw the shoulders back, and you can either look straight ahead or you can look toward the floor if that feels better on your neck. Let's take another 3 deep breaths. Keep lifting, keep opening the heart forward. And one more full breath. Returning your hands to the mat, let your feet rest down on the mat. Go back to downward facing dog. This is just a transition in our down dog. Switching up the legs, it's your left foot through for low lunge. Lower the right knee to the mat. Both hands to your left thigh, lift the chest. Keeping the left heel on the mat. If it feels good to do so, you can let the hips sink into the stretch. Keep the chest up, lengthen the tailbone down. Start to sweep the arms overhead. Change the grip as you interlace all 10 fingers, flip the palms high. With the palms pressing up, the shoulders move down the back. Let's give it another deep breath or so. Taking a little bit of a twist here. It's the right hand reaching outside the left leg while the left arm gently drapes around the lower back. The hips continue lengthening forward. The torso opens up to the left. 3 to 5 breaths. Start to untwist, unwind, return to center with your hands down. Both hands inside the left foot, maybe walk the left foot over a little bit, maybe an inch or so. Let the hips sink into the stretch for your lizard pose. Feel free to give the wrists a break if you want to put a block or something under the arms so you're resting on your forearms. Let the shoulders just soften into the stretch. Let's give it another 3 to 5, closer to 5. And then hands back on the mat if they're not already there. Grabbing your prop, your belt strap or towel if you need to use one. Bending up the right knee, reach the left hand back and grab the back foot. Let the tailbone just slightly tuck here, just enough until you feel the top of your right leg wake up. Let's give it another 2 or 3 deep breaths. releasing out your back foot, bring the hands back to center. Start to straighten the left leg, Ardha Hanuman. Walk the hands back, hands to opposite sides of the left leg. Using blocks if you need. Let the left toes curl back so they're almost pointing toward you. Let's take 3 to 5 deep breaths. Good. Then start to come up just a tiny bit. You can untuck the back toes if they're not already. Slide your right foot just in, a couple inches off to the right side, so maybe even off the mat. Bring both hands to the outside of your left leg, walking them back just enough until you feel the outer left hip wake up. So again, that might be closer up toward the foot. That might be further back toward the hip. Another 3 to 5 deep breaths. And start to walk your hands back toward the center, kind of leveling everything out. Rebend the left knee. Step your left foot back so you're on hands and knees. Let's do a little bit of frog pose, a little bit of frog and tadpole. Grab a blanket if you think you'll need one. I'm gonna go grab mine. So I like to unfold it pretty wide. So not a ton of cushion, but it's just enough. So frog pose, you'll be on hands and knees. In frog pose, your feet stay in a straight line right behind your knees. Walk your knees out. So again, the feet are pretty much in line with the knees, your legs almost like a 90-degree angle from your hips. So you'll be here, the knees kind of reach out toward the side. Then you can come down center. If you want to put a block under your forehead, you can. If this is too much on the hips or the knees, well, the knees might feel it the same because you're still putting the same areas on the floor, on the mat. You can dial this back into a tadpole pose, which I'm personally a big fan of. So tadpole brings the toes together, but keeping in mind this is not a child's pose because the knees are super wide. And we're not sinking back on our heels, we're staying right in the center using gravity. So this is like classic yin pose right here because we're tractioning our body against itself, right, and against the ground, where you can hold it for a long enough time. And of course, if you need to come out of it, you're always welcome to do so. The modification here would be a child's pose if you want to do that with your knees coming closer rather than farther apart. Just deep breaths. And we'll give this one another 5 or so deep breaths. Releasing out nice and easy as you bring the hands in. Lift the head, the chest up. So carefully bring the knees in. You can keep the blanket or remove the blanket, completely up to you. We're gonna do our pigeon stretch. Slide your left leg back behind you. Bring the right knee forward, the right knee behind the wrist. Props if you need them, right? Certainly under the right hip or thigh. Keep the left toes reaching back. And if you're good here, walk the hands out, forehead down. If you want to put a block or something under the forehead or a bolster, that's okay. All right, pigeon stretch, good. Definitely good in a vinyasa class, good in a restorative class, but you're using loads of props in restorative. And in yin, it's the same shape, we're just holding it for a lot longer. But again, come out of it if you need to. Deep breaths. Good. Giving it another 3 to 5 deep breaths. Start to slowly release out, slide the hands in, lift the head, the chest up. If you have props supporting the right hip, just scooch them out to the side. Roll to the right leg, bring the left leg around. We're going to come into Janu Shirshasana. I'll do this facing you. So your right foot against your inner left thigh. And instead of doing this like traditional vinyasa way where we lift the arms and stretch forward, we're just going to round down. So if your hands easily reach your left foot, that's great. If not, you can let your hands rest on opposite sides of your left leg. If you want to use blocks, you can even, or any kind of prop to kind of let your head soften, as long as you feel like you're still getting some stretch through the leg and getting some stretch through the right hip. So, you know, again, making this more of a yin stretch, we want to be sure we're working somewhere at a level 5 or 6 on a scale of 1 to 10. So not super restorative, but not full on, iron, iron stretch, right? Just kind of somewhere in between where it might feel yummy to get into it, and it might be yummy to hold on to it for even the first few breaths, but left here long enough, it would start to feel really deep. Not painful, but really deep. So feel the shoulders just soften to opposite sides. Let's give ourselves another 3 to 5 deep breaths. You can even start to remove props if you start to feel like you're, inching a little bit closer as you hold. From your forward fold here, start to uncurl. Come up, 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 nice and easy. As you unround, keep your left leg reaching forward, then take your blocks or bolsters, whatever props you have. We'll do the supported side stretch. Take your props to the outside of your left leg. There we go. And taking your left arm on the prop or props, and your right hand rests on the right leg. You can keep your right hand down, right? If you want to go for it, the option is your right arm lifts all the way up and your right hand gently rests on the back of your head. So here's the side opening stretch that we're looking for. Let's take another 3 to 5 deep breaths. And start to slowly straighten out as you lower the right hand if it was lifted, coming up, straightening out both legs on the mat. Scooch that to the side. Straightening out the legs, you can shuffle out the feet. You can keep the knees softly bending if that feels good. We're doing another forward fold, rounding, right? This is a rounding stretch. In Yin, we call this caterpillar. So not like Vinyasa where we're lengthening and reaching. It really is just rounding. You can let your hands rest on the legs or on opposite sides of the legs. And of course, if you want to use a prop or a bolster or something under your head, you can do that. 'Cause you certainly don't want to feel pressure in the neck, but you definitely still want to feel like you're getting some kind of a stretch as you hold it. Let's take another 3 to 5 deep breaths. Right, so it might not feel like anything when you first get into it, but the longer you hold it, things start to talk to you. And that's where the magic happens. Start to slowly uncurl, unround, coming up, up, up. Removing your props to the side. Start to bend up at the right leg and send the right leg back as you bend the left knee, just transitioning into pigeon on the left leg. So we're bringing the left knee through, the right leg back. Feel free to use props if you need under the left side, under the left leg. If you're good here, proceed, walk the hands out, forehead down, maybe even put a block or bolster under the forehead. Yeah, we're here for a full minute, so just let yourself settle in. Softening the shoulders. Keep the breath moving. Good. 3 to 5 more deep breaths. Start to slowly make your way out as you slide the hands in, lift the head, the chest up. If you have any props directly under the left side, just remove them so you can roll off to the left. Bring the right leg around into your Janu Shirshasana. So facing you, your right leg is straight, the left foot against the inner thigh. You're rounding into this. So again, you can just kind of round over the extended leg. You can round slightly to the inside of the leg using any props that you might want to grab. All right, just kind of let the shoulders soften down. Good. We're here for another 3 to 5 deep breaths. And start to slowly uncurl as you lift your head, unround, right? Coming all the way upright. taking your props, this time we're going to the outside of the extended leg. So grabbing a block, bolster, anything that's going to suit you. Let your right arm rest on the block, your head in your hand, and either your left hand remains on the knee. As long as you feel something happening, the longer you hold it, you're going to feel it deeper. You're welcome to stay there, but of course, if you want to go for it, the left arm reaches over and the hand just very lightly draping back behind you. So there's no real pressure here with your hand on your head, and we really don't want to go quite to that spot. Nice deep breaths. Giving it another 3 to 5. Start to slowly straighten yourself out. Lower the left hand. If it was lifted, just nice and easy, come out, straightening out both legs. You shuffle out the feet a little bit if you want to do that. We'll bend at the knees, bringing the soles of the feet together, not Baddha Konasana. This is a butterfly pose. So your feet are wide from the hips. Yogi's choice. You can go over the legs. Again, remember we're rounding, so we're not like lengthening and full on stretching quite that way. Rounding, either go over the legs or take the hands, slide them under with the hands resting on the tops of the feet this way. Doesn't really, matter. Certainly doesn't matter to me which way you go. Do what's going to be, that's going to feel good. Let your head sink down, and if you want to put a block under your head or a bolster, pillow, anything that you have there, just to prevent any strain on the neck. Deep breaths. We'll give it another 3 to 5 deep breaths. Right, the more you surrender into the stretch, right, the more release you feel along the spine. And start to uncurl as you lift away. Right, coming up nice and easy. And this time when you do come all the way up, fold the knees in, drop the hands behind the back, just windshield wiper the knees a little side to side. You can hold with your knees pointing one way, turn your head the other way. Yeah, one more breath. Bring the knees to center, go the other way. With your knees pointing one way, turn your head toward the other. Let's come back to center. Come onto your hands and knees, and as promised, we're revisiting the splits, which is a dragonfly in our yin pose, starting with your right leg forward. So come into low lunge, bring the right foot through, and grabbing blocks if you want to use them. Start to straighten the right leg, and maybe you hang here. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with coming back and being here as long as you get something out of it, right? If you feel a little bit looser to take it deeper, by all means, start to slide the right heel forward, left knee back. I always like to use a prop under the front leg. But you do you. You see what's going to work for you, and maybe the hands stay down for some stability. Maybe if you feel stable enough, you can lift the arms up. That's it, right? Yeah, you can lift the arms all the way up, or do what I'm doing with your hands to opposite elbows. Maybe do what we did at the beginning with your hands, the back of your head. Just kind of let the shoulders drop away from the ears. Yeah. All right, and yeah, maybe you don't need props at all. That's, more power to you. There's nothing that says you have to use props here. Let's give it another 3 deep breaths. And let's make our way out carefully. Right. And now that you know what these stretches are, you can always revisit them too if you ever feel like, oh, I need a hip stretch, oh, I need a back stretch. Because you can hold these for like 5 minutes, ideally if you wanted to do that. Slide your right foot back, so you're again on hands and knees, just switching out the sides. Now your left foot through. Ardha Hanuman starting here, or working into your deeper dragonfly variation. Right? So the left heel forward, right knee back. Props, no props, all good. Just deep breaths, and either keep the hands down, or if you're supported, nice, that's it. Right, hands behind the head or hands to elbows. Let's take 3 more deep breaths. And carefully releasing out, hands down if they're not already. Slide the left heel in, bend at your knees. Let's sweep the feet around. Roll onto your back, bring the knees in toward the chest. Yeah. And yeah, hug the knees in, maybe a happy baby pose here. Right, that should feel pretty good as well. All right, happy baby held long enough is also a yin stretch. Good. Let your feet return to the mat briefly. Drop your arms out to the sides like airplane wings. Then lift the right leg, cross it over your left. We'll take a little twist here. Drop your knees to the left. Look over your right shoulder. And if you want to go for it, you can take your left hand onto the top leg. Right? If you want to loop the legs around a little bit more, you certainly can do that, almost like eagle legs, if that's a reasonable stretch to take. Keep the right shoulder on the mat as best you can. Take 1 more breath. start bringing both knees to the center. Release the right foot back to the right side. Lift the left leg, cross it over. Drop both knees to the right. Arms out. Turn your head if you can to the left. Keep the shoulder on the mat, and if you want to loop the legs a little bit deeper, you certainly can do that if you want. See how that feels on the hips, the low back. Take one more breath. Let's come back to center. Unwrap your legs, both feet on the mat. Let's come into our Shavasana, extending out the legs. And if you want, since we have the props today, let's do a little supported. So I'm gonna roll up my blanket. I'm just gonna roll it up. And you can just use the blanket under the knees. You can even put blocks under the knees, or even blocks under the blanket under the knees. It just helps to release the lower back. It might feel really good, right? So that might be a nice back release for you. And return onto your back. Maybe shimmy the hips a little side to side. Just settle into your space. Turn the palms up. Close the eyes. Once again, just settling into space. Begin lengthening the breath. Observing the belly rise on the inhales, falling softly on the exhales. Wiggling fingers and toes, maybe gently roll the head a little side to side. Reach the arms overhead, enjoy a nice waking stretch. Bring the knees in toward the chest once again. Slowly roll to one side. And keeping the eyes closed a little bit longer, start returning back up to a comfortable seated position on the mat. Palms together at the heart. Relax your chin to your chest. Taking a moment as we seal our class, just once again reconnecting to the breath. Revisiting your intention. And always taking the time to honor your efforts and honor your practice today. You're welcome to join me chanting one Om as we seal our class. Taking a deep breath in. Taking a deep breath out. Inhale. Om. Namaste.